Ang all-night bakery proofing room promise on the order ticket. The bakery on Harrow stays open because dough refuses to sleep. After midnight, the place becomes a country of warm air and quiet labor, trays moving in slow choreography, timers speaking in small metal truths. I pushed through the side door with my phone face down in my palm like a coin I wasn't ready to spend and slid it into my left pocket, the pocket I use for things that are supposed to make it home. Flour hung in the air like a gentle lie. The mixers murmured their low liturgy. The proofing room breathed. Back home, Lewis had said, "Can we talk tomorrow?" in the voice that means please stay now. Our couch is excellent at auditions. Give it 10 minutes and it turns the living room into a courtroom. I left before either of us started rehearsing testimony we'd resent by breakfast. On the stairwell, my screen lit with a message from F. Felix in my contacts, F in the way I label hazards to make them smaller. Back doors open. Just talk. Roofs forgive nobody in daylight. Ovens pretend they will. By day, I fix other people's paragraphs. By night, I try not to turn my own into weapons. Lewis and I keep a code that works when we remember it. T means come here, you awake. Means I'm scared. Tomorrow means not yet, but don't go far. Felix spun back into orbit 2 months ago wearing a baker's jacket, unbuttoned one too many, and a laugh that sounded like a glass agreeing to be set down gently. He didn't ask for anything. That's how I started bringing him everything. He stood by the bench under the long lamp, sleeves pushed, collar open, hands dusted in proof that heat has a future. The smell of butter followed him the way a story follows a mouth. "You came," he said, "because grown men insist on pretending arrival is a plot twist." "I came to return something," I said. "My jacket, your sense." "Your name," I said. "It's been on my mouth too long for its own health." He smiled without showing teeth, the variety of restraint I hate him most for. A rack of shaped loaves waited beside us, pale and faithful. He pulled an order pad from his pocket, flipped to a clean ticket, and laid it on the floured bench with a carpenter's precision. "3 words," he said, setting a pencil beside it. "Why are you here?" "3 words is cruel," I said. "That's why they work," he said. The proofing room exhaled, the way bodies do when they remember they're allowed. I wrote proud at breakfast. Beneath it, smaller like a fuse I may or may not light, touch before arguing. He read the graphite as if it had tone. He didn't touch me. His hand hovered a breath from my lapel, as if straightening it would count as permission, and fell away like we were already being graded. "Does he know?" Felix asked. He didn't weaponize the pronoun. He's better at accuracy than kindness. "He knows the apartment is quiet," I said, and the timer on the bench tried to convert that into usefulness and failed. Felix dusted a space clean with the side of his palm, set down a round of dough with the tenderness men pretend to withhold from themselves, and pressed his fingers in the center, slow, as if mapping a country before buying a ticket. "You've always loved this room," he said. "It tells the truth a little early." "It tells the truth only if you keep your hands where honesty can find them," I said. He reached for mine and then didn't. He'd arrived where air had been hired to be professional. "Tell me no," he said, quietly, almost decent. I didn't. I met him in the inch that rewrites evenings. His mouth tasted like peppermint and heat he was prepared to keep. When his flour-dusted hand found the back of my neck, his grip remembered humane limits. My body answered like a courtroom that wants the witness anyway. He made the sound men make when a small country surrenders and calls it diplomacy. I made the one I've argued with in mirrors and trusted in him anyway. We didn't rush. Ovens reward patience, not speed. His mouth found the hinge of my jaw. Mine found the place behind his ear where regret loses vocabulary. He slid his palm under my shirt and rested it flat a moment. "Do you swear?" then moved with attention rather than appetite. He guided my hand down with the steadiness of a person who respects tools. I closed my fingers and he exhaled into my mouth a truth nobody paid to hear. He reached for me and I let him. We stayed quiet because walls prefer prose. Doe rose steadily beside us, deciding to be brave in public. "We already cheated," he said later, breath back where sentences live. "We cheated when we started telling each other the truth before we told it at home." "I know," I said, and the elevator of my chest chose the honest floor. He picked up the ticket, folded it once, then slid it into my left pocket with ceremonial slowness. His thumb traced my wrist a single time, choosing not to keep what he could have stolen. He stepped back the moral inch that passes inspection. "I booked a room," he said, not triumphant, weather report, not prophecy. "Refundable. We could stand at a window and not touch for 60 seconds just to prove we remember ceremony. We could keep the do not disturb honest." "I'm tired of being clever," I said. "Clever's the pastry case," he said. "Accurate is the bread." The head baker called something from the far end. Numbers, temperatures, a small hymn to predictability. Felix nodded without looking. He turned the dough under his hands, pressed, folded, gave it back its shape the way men hope to do with mornings. The gesture did something inside my ribs I wasn't prepared to report. "You'll go home," he said eventually, not a dare, an inventory. "I'll go home," I said. "I want what I promised." The proofing room warmed its answer. He leaned in and kissed me again, brief and exact, something a timer could keep without lying to its log. He took a short magnet from the cabinet, a novelty shaped like a baguette, ridiculous and perfect, and pressed it into my palm. "For your fridge," he said. "Cold helps letters behave." He placed a boule in a banneton, floured the top, and scored it with a blade so sharp the air applauded. The cuts opened obediently, invitations rather than injuries. He looked at me then with a mouth that had stopped being cruel to itself. "Text me a weather report in the morning," he said. "Tell me if the kettle beat the reasons." "It usually does," I said, "when we let it." He slid the loaf into the oven, the door sighing shut like a decent sentence arriving on time. We stood there a moment longer, heat reminding us of the compound interest of choices. He didn't touch my shoulder as I turned. I didn't ask him to. We were both trying for accurate instead of noble. The street outside had become the kind of quiet that trusts you with it. The crosswalk gave me time, I took it. The apartment let me in with its square of kitchen light and the fridge's faithful hum. Louis sat on the floor with his back against the door, sleeves pushed to his elbows, one ankle crossed over the other, the posture manuals use when they draw people who are about to fix things. He didn't ask where I'd been. He tilted his head toward the place beside him. I sat. The kettle stared us down like an honest device that knows its job better than I know mine. "Do you want to be asked?" he said, voice steady, not performing mercy, offering it. "Please," I said, "because prompts are scaffolding when you've been building without permits." "Are you lonely?" he asked. "Some nights," I said. "Not here, not when you ask first, not when the kettle outruns the reasons." I took his wrist and set his hand on my forearm the way he does when he needs to make sure I'm not inventing weather. His thumb traced once and believed me. "I feel useful," he said. "I want to be wanted before I'm useful." "Tonight's procedure," I said. "Touch first, argue second, report later." The kettle clicked like a stamp in a country that still believes in mail. He stood and poured water over mint. We named it dinner because names are cheaper than regret. I pinned the order ticket beneath the baguette magnet so that Proud at Breakfast faced the room. Louis read the graphite and his mouth did the smaller, braver thing. He picked up the dry erase marker from the cup by the fridge and wrote beneath the magnet, Tomorrow, keep the torque. He didn't grin. He nodded like a man, assembling a morning from honest screws. We made a rule that isn't noble. When prosecution tries to wear a bathrobe, one of us says bakery and the other puts the kettle on while the first puts his hands where history can find them. 5 words when 5 are enough. Stop at the shoulder, not the ditch. Try to want what we promised, and when we don't, write 3 words on small paper and tell the room where we failed and how we'll fail differently tomorrow. Days did what days do when you're trying to be an amateur human with professional consistency. The ticket in my pocket learned the shape of my left hand. Paper learns its carriers. On the late bus, I drafted messages to no one that began I didn't ask, because I thought that counted as kindness and ended may your breakfast go right. I didn't send them. The not sending felt like a skill borrowed from ovens that hold steady when the room forgets. A week later, afternoon tried to be a test. I walked past the bakery and bought nothing. I left a bottle of water by the service door with a note, "For whoever is waiting for a sister." The head baker glanced up and gave me the nod bridges use when they've held and will hold again. On the way home, I slipped a blank order ticket into my pocket and wrote "Turn" toward your name across the clean side. I didn't light anything. That night we ate toast like it had been newly invented. We failed and failed differently and failed in ways that didn't require anyone to stand in a proofing room pretending to know which score would save them. The room did not demand a verdict. The morning remembered its job. And when we said tomorrow out loud, it meant only what we let it mean.